lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name's Ryan, and with me today I have writer Jed MacKay, writing a bunch of dope stuff at Marvel. Has some cool stuff coming up. Very excited to have you on the show, man.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm always excited to talk about comic books.
Yeah, same here, man. So, like for anybody, well, every time I interview somebody, I always like to kind of get, well, I've never said it in this way, but kind of their secret origin, right? Like how you got into books as a kid, and in turn, how that made you want to write comics, get into the comic industry yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I came up on comics from the get-go. Like, I think that's how I learned to read. I was reading, Tintin, a lot of the old Gladstone Disney stuff, like Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck, Barks reprints, Don Rosa, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And that's largely how I cut my teeth on just like reading full stop. So from there, I kind of went on to, your more superhero comics. I was mainly reading my dad's old comics. He had, piles of old books from the 70s. And that's what I spent most of the 90s reading is just, 60s and 70s stuff. Nice. Mostly Marvel, some DC stuff. And it would just be like whoever he was following, 20 years previous, all the Jack Kirby Fourth World stuff, Barry Windsor Smith on Conan, Paul Gulacy on Master of Kung Fu. And then just kind of like bits and bobs here and there, different artists that he was really into, like, Herb Trimpe on Hulk, or, the Starlin stuff, the Starlin Cosmic stuff, Adam Warlock. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a wide range of superhero stuff that I was reading through the 90s. And then, kind of graduated into, finding about, independent comics through the late 90s into the 2000s. And that's kind of where I started thinking this is something that I would be really interested in doing, especially when I got into like a lot of the kind of black and white stuff from the 80s.
Yeah,
you see like your Sin City and like Ninja Turtle stuff, because it had a certain like rawness and like a lack of polish that made it seem more accessible, that just anybody could make a comic. Because I mean, again, like this is the 90s. Late 90s through the early 2000s, social media didn't exist. You didn't have these stories of people living all over the world making comic books. I thought for a long time, if you were going to make comics, you had to live in New York,
Yeah, for
sure. Here I was in like the smallest province and island in maritime Canada. And it just didn't seem like something that someone like me or like anybody I knew could do. And then, like I said, you got into, smaller independent stuff. The comic shop here in Halifax, Strange Adventures, they did their own like indie comic called Halifax Explosions, like an anthology thing of just people who lived in Halifax, which blew me away, because like it was one of the first times I could see that people who lived where I lived could make comics. Similarly, my dad was working with Sandy Carruthers, who was the artist on the original Men in Black series, and again, like when you actually meet people and see people who are doing the thing, you kind of think to yourself, maybe I can do the thing myself. So yeah, from there, basically just, the internet really helped a lot. Again, it's pre-social media for the most part. So I was on message boards with other young artists who wanted to make comics. Maybe they didn't want to make superhero stuff, but they just wanted to make comics. And the internet made it really easy to share your work, for, people to give you advice, and also to collaborate. Yeah. So it became pretty apparent very quickly that I couldn't draw well enough or fast enough to actually, do the whole thing myself. Like I think, for a while I was like, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna be Paul Pope. I'm gonna just be this single-minded auteur. I'm gonna do everything myself. That didn't really shake out for me. But I hooked up with my friend Sheldon, and we just started making comics together. Really kind of like violent, dumb, crass comics, like you do when you're like 21. As years went by, we would do this here and there, until Sheldon, he was really getting out there, wanted to be a professional artist, which he was a great artist, and he continues to be a great artist. And he got tapped by Marvel to do some they're like kind of one-shot anthology stuff. I think it was Strange Tales. He had like this Motorhead Ghost Rider story in, and which was awesome. But anyways, he got tapped to do this story for X-Men Serve and Protect back in 2010. And it's like an X-Men character and a non-X-Men character meeting up and having an adventure for 8 pages. And he's kind of taken for a loss. So he emailed me. He's like, listen, I don't know any of these characters. I don't know what to do for this story. They're like, do you want to write it? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll write it. That'd be great. And so that's what we did. We did like a Dazzler, Daughters of the Dragon team up. It was like a roller disco on Rainbow Road, pretty much. And that's just kind of where I started. So yeah, back in 2010, that was my first published work, and that was my first Marvel work.
Oh wow, man. Yeah, see, like that's pretty, because I didn't discover your name. I mean, because there's so much content out there, and it's always funny when I talk to somebody like you, or after you got like more established, right? Like after you,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Stuff, and then I discover, oh man, there is something back there that they worked on, like that I completely bypassed my radar. And I think that's an awesome story. It's cool how, I mean, it's all about who you know in the industry. It truly is, at least in terms of not everybody, obviously, but I hear so often that that's how people get in. It's like they know somebody peripherally, and somehow that's how they make their way in. Because Marvel DC that's a tough nut to crack, in terms
it is
of getting in the door.
And like I feel like the phrase "is who you know" is often used very dismissively by people trying to get into the industry, crack the industry. In that it's less about who you know, it's more about community, because who you know implies that there's an old boys network or something that is closed off to the greater public, which isn't the case. Okay. It's more in a sense that I was part of a comic making community, and I had a collaborator I worked with for several years, and when an opportunity was there and he needed someone to write, he brought me in to write it. I mean, admittedly, I will say I was very lucky to get in the way that I did. It's not an industry that's easy to get into. It's certainly not an industry that's easy to make a career out of. Since 2010 to 2018, I did 16 pages in total. So it wasn't exactly an overnight success.
No, for sure. And I think that, and I say this a lot too, comic books, people that get into comic books don't get in for like fame and fortune for the most part, or like money. You do it for love. And that's why I think that that's why I think comic books are my favorite medium, because anytime you pick up a comic book, 9 times out of 10 that person is there because they love comic books. That's why they're doing what they do.
For sure. I mean, there's got to be easier ways to make money, but
for sure.
Because like I said, it took me 8 years, and even then, 2018, I did my first issue, which was Edge of Spider-Geddon, which then led to Daughters of the Dragon. Mm-hmm. But even then, I was still teaching junior high full time, because I was like, it's this freelance, I can't trust it. I'm not going to give up my steady paycheck until I know for sure that I can make a go of this. So it wasn't until like November of 2019 that I was like, okay, well, things are looking pretty good at this point in time. I'm going to go full-time freelance.
Yeah. I mean, so like I work in a shop right now, and I have for a couple of years. It's, I've worked in comic shops when I was a kid, for credit, but like my manager and I talked, because I kept seeing your name. First I saw Black Cat, right? Like, and I dug the character. I'm like, oh, cool. It's awesome that she's getting her own book. I read the first arc, I think, really loved it. And your name just keeps popping up, and you just keep getting on more projects. You have Taskmaster, you have Moon Knight, which is phenomenal, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And now you have Death of Doctor Strange. I just saw the announcement yesterday, as of the day we're recording, for the one shot, the Spider-Man. But I think there was the story you wrote in Free Comic Book Day of 2020. That Spider-Man story with Black Cat. I don't know what it was about that story, but you just got that voice down for Peter like perfectly, in my opinion.
And thank you.
I'm like, I gotta follow this guy to whatever he does now. It's just like something clicked for me with that particular story. So I'd really love to hear how, I mean, like the success, man. I mean, like you got Black Cat, Marvel just keeps giving you some really cool projects.
Oh yeah.
With characters that I don't get to see, and that's what I really like about Marvel and DC, is when we do get those books. Like Taskmaster, like he has his fan base, right? But you don't see it all the time. Black Cat had her fan base, but she didn't have a book. And
she never had a book.
And I'm just very excited to see these characters kind of get brought to brought to the forefront, you know, of the industry kind of, and people get more eyes on the characters, and new people can discover them. But like, how did the Black Cat project kind of come about?
So after I did Edge of Spider-Geddon, my first like full issue, I emailed Nick Lowe, who's the, you know, at that time he's the only editor I'd ever worked with at Marvel, and I said, like, listen, I had a great time doing this. I'd love to do some more work with you. You know, I really like making comics. I'd love to make some more comics if you've got anything that you think might be a good fit. And Nick, you know, he emailed me back saying, actually, I do have something for you. We're doing this digital only series, Daughters of the Dragon. And basically we had some people set up for it, but it fell apart and we need someone to turn it around quick. And I had turned around Edge of Spider-Geddon extremely quickly. So, you know, he's like, what do you got? Like, can you do something for this immediately? I'm like, absolutely. It came very, very good timing. So I just finished my marking for that school year. So like literally that day, I was like, okay, I can devote my entire time to this. And, you know, that was my first series. It was, you know, three double-sized issues, you know, 6 issues essentially in total. And it had a vibe that Nick really liked. You know, it was high energy, lots of excitement, lots of action, some jokes, lots of kind of, you know, shit talking back and forth. And, you know, Nick was really taken with it. But, you know, being a digital only series and also being a Daughters of the Dragon series, it didn't exactly set the world on fire. But editors really liked it. And when the events of Amazing Spider-Man brought Black Cat back in, they undid the whole Queen Pin thing and kind of brought her back into the more good guy side of the equation.
Yeah.
They decided they're going to spin off a series out of that. And so Nick called me and said, listen, we can't, you know how much I love Daughters of the Dragon, but we can't do another Daughters of the Dragon series. Like, that's just not going to happen. But we're doing Black Cat. And I think you could do the same thing you did with Daughters, but with Black Cat. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, and you know, what are we looking at? He's like, I want it to be an ongoing. I was like, I've never done an ongoing before. And that's basically it. Like, I didn't know a whole ton about the character, but you know, you get down to it, you do your research, you see what's interesting about the character, like what things you want to sort of foreground, what stuff maybe you don't want to get into as much, and just come up with a general idea and a feel for the story. You know, as it came out, you know, Felicia's been a lot of things over the years. You know, she's been the Queen Pin, she's been a private investigator, she's been a vigilante. But I thought that what seemed the most fun and what seemed the most exciting was, you know, stealing things. And, you know, she's always kind of put there as a cat burglar. But also, I feel like there's only so many stories you can do with that. Right. So instead, we moved in a direction of these kind of like big, colorful, you know, Ocean's 11, Italian Job, Lupin the Third sort of heists. You know, a lot of moving parts, a lot of colorful characters, people talking shit and looking good while getting up to adventures. And that's just kind of where it came from. We, you know, as an ongoing, you don't know how long it's going to run. Of course, that 5-issue hurdle is a big one to jump. So we thought, you know, we'll shoot for 10 issues. If we get that, we'll call ourselves lucky and we can be happy with the project. But it, you know, hit past 5 issues, blew past 10 issues, and you know, it's now been announced that we're finishing it up. But by the end, we'll have done 25 issues, which for a Black Cat series is pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, it's not like I've always liked the character because Spider-Man was always one of my favorite characters. Yeah. I did not like the Queen Pin stuff, that where she just went full on evil. It was not. I kind of missed her being in the mix, is what I'm saying. Spider-Man, and like kind of not an anti-hero, but you know, kind of
she shades of gray.
Yeah, you know, kind of like Catwoman always was, but different. She had a different personality than Catwoman in DC. And I really loved what you've done with the series. I think that
thank you.
It's been a fun book. And it, like I said, that story, the free comic book day. And then, I mean, what does it feel like to, I mean, you did the only Black Cat ongoing, right? And you've gotten a significant chunk. I mean, I think you'll have, 5 or 6 volumes when all is said and done, I believe.
I've got the trades here. So Queen and Black trade, which takes it up to issue 4 of the new series, is volume 4. Right. So we've got 3 more issues after that, for Gilded City. And then we've got Infinity Score for 3 issues plus Giant Size Black Cat, but also plus Black Cat Annual #2.
Right.
So, or Black Cat Annual #1, Volume 2.
Right.
You know how it is.
Yeah, I know. It's the numbering sometimes is confusing. But yeah, so like what like looking back now, I mean, I don't know if you're already you've wrapped up the writing part of it. I don't know where you are with that, but looking back, like what was the experience like? You even said like you didn't really know too much about the character, but now you've been in her head for over 25 issues. So what does that feel like now, having this, significant little chunk of time with this character?
I mean, like, like I said, I didn't really know who she was. I knew who she was, but like very, very little beyond the back of a Marvel trading card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she went from that to being my favorite character to write, where like, I'm putting Black Cat in anything I can. We're doing Death of Doctor Strange, and we're doing the Death of Doctor Strange Spider-Man tie-in one shot. And so we had all the writers together. We're talking about the different tie-ins and stuff. And Nick was like, "Well, how about you write the Spider-Man tie-in?" I'm like, "Well, I'm already writing the main series. I'm like super busy." He's like, "You can do it. You can make it like a Black Cat thing." I was like, "Yeah, right. You got me. I'll do it." And then I wrote that, and it turned out like it's one of my favorite issues I've written in a long time. It's it's a real Black Cat Spider-Man story getting up to adventures, and Felicia is super mean in it. So yeah, it's great. And again, with these 25 issues, I think it's a fairly significant portion of this character's history, especially her modern history, that I'm very. It's a fun feeling to have that effect on sort of the greater Marvel universe. And ultimately, I think maybe the biggest success of it for me, or from my perspective, is that we've made people Black Cat fans who previously would have just dismissed the character as, Spider-Man's girlfriend or Spider-Man's ex-girlfriend. And I think that's kind of the big accomplishment. You take a character that is always on the periphery and put her in the spotlight and have people see and acknowledge that that's a place where she belongs.
That's what I say all the time. I mean, you put it in better words than I normally voice it in, but that's kind of like what I say all the time. I'm in the shop. I'm like, do we have enough Batman books? We have enough Superman. Like, I want to see the other characters in these rich histories. Like, these companies have been around for such a long time. There are so many great, interesting characters. If they're just given the opportunity with a creative team that puts in the love and care, you can make new fans of these characters, and also these fans that have been clamoring for books or the return of titles. And you can create magic, you know what I mean? And I think that's what Black Cat like signifies for me. It's like exactly my feelings of like, you take a really interesting character, just give them a little bit of spotlight, man. And you can really create some good comics.
Give them a little juice, dust them off. Like, it's something that I really enjoy doing when working with Marvel, and is they have such a deep back catalog of characters and stories, and I think it's a lot of fun to dig into that without being like obnoxious about it. But we did Black Cat 2 and 3 when they broke into the Sanctum, and I was basically sifting through the Marvel fandom wiki list of magicians until my eyes bled, until I found like just the right character to bring in as like their hired magician. Xander the Merciless, who's in like 2 issues in like 1976 or something. And it's not done in an obnoxious way. It's like, oh, tee-hee, if you haven't read these 40-year-old Doctor Strange issues, you're not going to know what's going on. But just like, I could have just made up a new character, but when you can dust off something from the past and bring it in a way that is additive and interesting, then you give the universe a more authentic, more kind of lived in feel. It's like, these characters don't just go away. They're still out there doing something. So why not check in on them and see where they're at now?
I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying, dude. I mean, like, there's writers that do it in a way, because sometimes it can feel like, oh man, look at my deep knowledge of the history of DC, but then there's like Joshua Williamson over at DC. I think he does it perfectly. He blends like giving like the diehards, right? Like, here's this character you haven't seen for a while, but don't worry, they're still around. But then also introducing them to new people, and he blends like the nostalgia kind of, but but not in a way that's like beating you over the head, kind of.
Yeah, I mean that's the trick.
Yeah.
Because we've all read comic books get a little too deep into the continuity porn aspect of it, and I'm not even talking just like currently. Like you go back through the whole Marvel or DC back catalog, you're going to find issues like that.
Yeah.
Which it's fine, but with a book like Black Cat, I was always trying to bring in new readers, and so I don't want to make it. I don't want to make it any more difficult for them than it already is. Like, when I was doing my research, I started at the first, read Amazing Spider-Man when Black Cat first turns up, and she had her crew. She got those two goons, Boris and Bruno, and I was like, man, these guys are awesome, and they appeared in 3 issues and haven't been seen since. And I always have an eye when I'm starting a series with a character, like what's their supporting cast going to be like, because I think that's really important for them to have someone to react to, someone to bounce off of. And so I brought those 2 back, but you didn't have to read those old issues to know what their whole deal was. You just give the reader enough to latch onto, and then show them the character.
And I want to like lead in now to Moon Knight, because
Sure.
I think that it's very telling, like the fact that you got Moon Knight right as like the show's being worked on, and I think Moon Knight's going to be really elevated in terms of like profile to the public, right? Like people that didn't know who Moon Knight are, you're going to know soon, right? Once that's
Oh, absolutely.
How did that project come about? Was Moon Knight a character that kind of intrigued you, made you want to jump on? And then I also kind of want to know how, because Moon Knight's an interesting character. So like
he's got a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. There's been some really great runs throughout his history. A lot of top talent. I think the artist you're paired with, Sandro, he's insane. It's just a beautiful book. Everything, the writing, the art. So I'd love to hear how that came about and kind of what your plans are for the character moving forward.
So I got an email about Moon Knight, would have been last fall, I think around October. And, Tom Brevoort just basically said, I'm looking to put together a Moon Knight book. His profile is on the rise. Generally when there is something in TV or movies that's brings one of these characters in, we'll want to do something with the comic books as well. Like that's where Taskmaster came from, right? Mm-hmm. Taskmaster was supposed to come out the same month Black Widow did. Both experienced significant delays, et cetera, et cetera. But that's why I had a Taskmaster book, was because of Black Widow.
Right.
So similarly, Moon Knight's profile, like you said, was going up. They wanted to have a book with Moon Knight in it, but they didn't really know what they wanted it to look like. So Tom had emailed, a few writers, basically saying, I don't have a real picture of what I want this book to look like. So that's why I'm kind of putting it out there. I have a few things that I would like to see in it. We want to, kind of move away from his, DID sort of taking over the entire story. We want to move away from, the Khonshu stuff taking over the entire story. Ideally, we'd see him perhaps in a more sort of street level kind of area. But beyond that, what do you got? And I was really excited because I think Moon Knight's really cool. He doesn't get books that often. And, so when that brass ring comes around, you got to grab it because you don't know when it's going to come around again. So I basically, put all my thoughts together, the ideas I had, did up a little 5-issue outline, threw in some characters that I thought, some new characters that would be interesting, some old characters who were not Moon Knight characters that I thought would be interesting, and sent it off. So we went back and forth on it a couple times, and basically Tom was like, all right, well, I guess you can start writing the first issue now. I was like, oh, okay, so I got it. Great. And that's kind of where we took it from there. Mm-hmm. So I had some questions that I kind of wanted to look at in regards to Moon Knight. And, I was looking at the previous runs to take the things I liked, and then sort of look at stuff that I thought, could be looked at in a different way or addressed in a different way. So, like we're putting Moon Knight back on the street. We're dealing with the fallout of the Age of Khonshu without making it the whole thing that the series is about. We're examining this role of Moon Knight, of what it means to be the Fist of Khonshu, what it means to be the High Priest of Khonshu when Khonshu is in a prison that you put him in. He's, like I say, he's a renegade priest, a heretic. He's an apostate, he's a schismatic. And, what does that mean to someone? Why hold on to that identity when it's brought you only pain for your entire second, third, fourth life, And so, yeah, we're basically seeing, Mark Spector grappling with trying to figure out who he is, not in a DID sense, but in just more of an existential and philosophical sense, while still also just like kicking the shit out of some people.
Yeah, I mean, that first issue, I read issue 2 already.
Nice.
I thought that was a phenomenal first issue. My buddy,
thank you.
That was one of our picks week, and I think that it was our favorite book that week because it just completely blew us away. Like you said, Moon Knight books, they don't come around often. So when you're a fan of the character, when they come around, you make sure you have that book in your
hand. Exactly.
I just, I felt like it was different than what I had previously seen with the character. I'm glad that you didn't lean too heavily into the Age of Khonshu storyline, that it felt like you didn't ignore it, but it felt like a clean break and something. We're getting something different now. We're going this kind of way with the character. But what do you want? What kind of mark do you want to leave with this character that we haven't seen before that's going to be something fresh and new?
Ideally, a series that goes on for several years. But no, basically, I'm trying to establish Moon Knight as a character. Everybody takes on a character and tries to have their definitive take with them. Mm-hmm. This is kind of the way it is. Everyone wants to make their mark. Everyone wants to put their ideas out there in hopes that they'll be the ones that catch on. People get excited about. So as far as Moon Knight, I'm trying to establish space for him in the Marvel universe that I think makes sense, that is exciting, and hopefully will be able to be something that will last. I've set up his Midnight Mission. I've set up his, I'm not writing a novel here. We've set up this place for him, this world, and this supporting cast that we're gradually growing out and building threats against him that we're gradually escalating. I mean, I'm basically just trying to show Moon Knight has a specific place in the Marvel universe that I think should always be there. He's the guy on the streets, but he deals with weird things and unpleasant things. And, he does things that Daredevil doesn't. He does things that Spider-Man doesn't. He's someone who's driven, someone who has real crises about, who he is and ideas of faith and identity and heritage. I mean, I guess that's a lot of words just to kind of say, I want Moon Knight to be someone that people will pick up, and someone who should have, a long-running series, someone who should be in the forefront. Because I think he's a character that has a lot of history with Marvel, and someone who, outside of his earlier runs, when, you had really long runs, someone who can afford to stick around and should stick around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he's too interesting of a character to not, there's the visuals of him, and I've even said, the white costume can be so hard to do.
Oh yeah.
Comic book, but my God, it's stunning the way it looks in that first issue. The fight scenes, just the way the light hits it.
Oh yeah.
Really awesome.
That was the thing. Like when we were putting it together, my original thought was that we'd be doing the standard white uniform. And Tom was very keen on sort of the more Sienkiewicz black and silver kind of look, but which is still more or less the same costume. But Alessandro was dead set on using Declan's costume. I was like, I don't know, man. Like Declan's costume, it's really cool, but also Declan has such a specific style. It's very hard to take something that he's drawn or created sometimes, and then for other artists to use it. But man, boy, did he prove me wrong. So I was like, yeah, all right, it's all you, buddy. You got this.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think that I'm telling you, the fight scenes, everything. And the book sold. I know the book sold out with us first week. We got more in, and it already dwindled down again. I think that people are really.
That's great to hear.
And you talk about carving out Moon Knight, his kind of own little corner, right?
Exactly.
The universe. I think that the supernatural. I mean, he debuted in Werewolf by Night. So
yeah,
I think that the supernatural element is something that could be really interesting. And you talk about building out supporting cast. So I was wondering, while also creating new characters in the book, are there any characters that you kind of want to bring back in that maybe we haven't seen in a while? Kind of like what you do with Black Cat's, her henchman. Is that something you've been thinking about?
To a lesser extent, to be quite honest. I feel like a lot of stuff with Moon Knight's original supporting cast is kind of mined out at this point. Like when I brought back Black Cat's crew, they had never really been used since her debut. Whereas I feel like we've done a lot with Moon Knight's supporting cast, but also they're not exactly who people are clamoring for. I don't think people are like, banging their knife and fork on the table, like asking for more Frenchie or,
Yeah.
So for the moment, I'm sort of establishing a clean break from that. Like I said, we're picking up with Mark after he conquered the world. And one of the kind of points of that is that everybody hates him. He beat up the Avengers. He burned all his bridges. He established himself as, a huge menace, a huge threat. And previous to that, almost anything bad that's ever happened to his friends is his fault, or, is based on the fact that they're associated with him. And so he's kind of like the inverse of Black Cat, where, I have Felicia in her series as everyone knows she's a crook, but everyone still likes her. Whereas Moon Knight, he's a hero, but nobody likes him. And that's, kind of where he's dealing with. And that's how he's dealing with his fresh start. Like we'll see some callbacks and some, we'll answer some questions about his previous comrades. But at this point in time, we're kind of starting fresh.
Okay. Yeah, not just in terms of supporting cast, but I was also wondering more of like maybe some of the supernatural characters.
Oh, like his villains, yeah.
Villains and or, other, not necessarily heroes, but just like that supernatural, like the Midnight Suns type stuff, the Ghost Rider, the Blades, all those kind of characters that don't necessarily, we don't necessarily see a lot, or maybe we haven't seen in a very long time. I was wondering if any of those kind of characters you wanted to kind of, get in the mix in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've always kind of got my eye on, because Moon Knight does have, like, he was a short-lived member of the Midnight Suns that the Wong put together for Damnation. And I did have some plans for a Blade thing, but that kind of fell through just as far as space went. But I mean, those are the kind of people that I would want to bring in, because I'm not gonna have a Moon Knight Captain America team up, probably, because it just doesn't really fit.
Right.
So the sort of guest stars we would be looking at would be those kind of characters, people who are on the weirder end of the superhero or villain spectrum. Like, that's why we see Vermin in there, but we also see 8-Ball. You're not going to see, like, Moon Knight is a guy who in this series, he's working on the periphery. He's not saving the city, he's not saving the world, he's saving his neighborhood, he's saving his territory, because that's what he's staked out and that's what he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I like that aspect. I mean, it's kind of like Daredevil with Hell's Kitchen, although what Daredevil's doing right now is kind of a little bit crazier than that, but that's what I've always loved about that. It's like, no, Daredevil just Hell's Kitchen, that's where he's at. And I think that's a cool element to add for Moon Knight, is that he's just kind of, you're grounding him, even though he does have that supernatural element. And
for sure.
I think my buddy Dylan and I know he's going to be happy to hear that there's some of the characters that you kind of like to bring into the mix, because that's what we talked about with the first issue, that we like the supernatural element, and to see some of those characters and kind of leaning into that and bringing out these weird, obscure characters that maybe we haven't seen in a while. So I can't wait to see what we got planned moving forward, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun. Like, in issue 1, we introduced 2 people who are going to cause Moon Knight problems. We introduced Dr. Bader, who we see as Hunter's Moon at the end of the issue. And obviously Hunter's Moon is going to cause him some difficulties. But then we also have this sort of, shadowy character who's got him under surveillance. And, this character that we're sort of setting up as an antagonist is, they're an established Marvel character. There's not someone new. So, theoretically, you could guess who they were, but I would be quite surprised. But, speculate away. But it's not a Moon Knight character, and that's what I think is interesting in a situation like this, is taking characters who are not Moon Knight characters and bringing them into this book. Because the thing is, not a lot of Mark's villains survive.
Yeah.
Like, someone tweeted at me, is like, bring back Black Spectre. I'm like, they're both dead. One he threw off a building, the other he blew up. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do with that? Or not bring back Black Spectre, but bring back Carson Knowles Black Spectre. I'm like he murdered him on television. I think,
Yeah,
if
I
memory
think
serves.
yeah, everybody, they have, I mean, like obviously people have their things they want to see, but I think that I can have my ideas of what I think a writer or
Yeah,
a creative team should do, but I would rather see what somebody else does, because whatever somebody else is going to do is probably crazier than anything I could think of. And I think
I mean that's the goal.
yeah,
It's you don't necessarily want to give people everything they want. You want to give them something maybe they didn't realize they wanted, which
yeah.
I mean is very glib, and it's certainly easier said than done. But there's a reason that I don't have polls up for every issue saying, "Hey, what should happen? Choose your own adventure," kind of thing, because it's not how it works.
Like I said, I don't know. I didn't have any expectations for Moon Knight #1. Nothing. I
Right.
went into it blind. I didn't read the solicit. I try not
Oh
to
wow.
solicit because, like you were saying, like, before social media, before the internet, right? Like I miss those days.
Yeah.
I miss when
It's
I
tough
didn't
to be
get spoiled.
surprised.
It's so annoying, man. And like working in a comic book store and kind of having to stay up on some like maybe speculation and stuff like that, like it kind of pulls the mystery from it. And my buddy, like I said, my buddy Dylan, he's like, dude, just stop reading solicits. Just don't. and he's like, you're gonna enjoy the comics more. And I was like, okay. And since then, I haven't read solicits. I'm even more surprised, and I try to stay off of comic book news websites as much as I can, unless I see an announcement for a book. But even then, I see the name, the creative team, boom, done. I don't want to read much more. I want to be surprised like I was when I first got into comic books.
And I mean, it makes sense. And the thing is, too, if you're working at a comic shop, it's not like you're in a situation where, like, I got to decide which one book I got to buy.
Yeah.
You have access to a whole wide raft of stuff, so you can you don't have to do as much research to kind of figure out, like, is this going to be worth my money? Do I want to waste my time and money on this? I don't know if it's going to be good, because I mean, it's part of your job. You get your books in, you got to read them up so you can sell them to people.
And it has helped me to kind of take chances on books I normally wouldn't take a chance on, right? Because
for sure,
it's research. It's not. So my wife sees me bring a stack home. I'm like, I didn't buy all these. I'm just reading some, But
it's market research.
Market research. But I also, if I read a first issue, I know whether or not I want to come back. For the moment, it's either I know I for sure want to come back, or I read it. I'm like, I'll give it one more chance. I will give it one more issue to win me over. If it doesn't, then that's it. Like I've gotten away from that where, oh man, I got to at least finish the arc. I have to. Like I used to waste so much money that way, where I'm like, I'm not even enjoying this. Why am I continuing to buy it? Just so that I have the complete arc. And once I got away from that, I think I'm able to focus on the stuff I enjoy. And Moon Knight's one of them. And I hope you're on it for a while. I would love to hear how much you've got planned out.
Yeah, I mean, we're planned out for 12 so far, and it's just a matter of as the issues come out, depending how they sell, hopefully we'll get approved for more. Just like any other ongoing book, they give you a number that you can hard plan for, and then you always got to have ideas in the back of your head to either end at that or keep it going, depending on how the sales go. So far it seems to be doing pretty well. With second printing on #1. Got a recolored McNiven cover coming out, I think September 1st. So far, so good. We'll see how it goes.
All right, cool. Let's jump into the death of Doctor Strange. It seems like Marvel is getting some of their key characters off the board just as their movies are coming out. And a lot of people on the internet have talked about it, because you have Peter Parker with what's going on in Spider-Man, even though I don't think he's dying. This is called Death of Doctor Strange. So I'd love to hear a little bit, because I haven't been reading too much into it. So I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts on the story and, what we can expect with the book.
So yeah, it's funny how it came about. I was finishing up the King in Black Cat arc. So, I had Doctor Strange in it, and I'd finished Taskmaster a little while before. And I thought to myself, like, well, I need another book. I got to make some money. And I noticed there was no Doctor Strange book, and there's no Doctor Strange book announced. So, I asked around, I emailed the the editor Darren Shan, who's in charge of the Doctor Strange stuff. I was like, listen, I see you don't have a Doctor Strange book out. There's not one announced. Can I write one? And he was like, sure. I was like, oh shit, it's that easy. And he's like, yeah, we're killing him, so you can write that. I was like, all right, well, not what I had planned, but I still will be fun. So yeah, Death of Doctor Strange. We're killing Earth Sorcerer Supreme. We're going to basically see what the fallout is from this, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything to say from this murder. He didn't slip in the shower. So there's a few aspects to it. We're obviously taking the Sorcerer Supreme out of the equation. It does not mean great things for the planet Earth.
Mhm.
The Sorcerer Supreme is, as much a part of Earth's defenses as the ozone layer, or the Earth's magnetic field. The Sorcerer Supreme is the magical version of that. And when that person is gone, that's going to cause significant problems for the world. But also, it's causing significant problems for Doctor Strange's friends. He's had so many people in his life, and when he's been taken out of it, they're going to want to know why. They're going to want to know who did it. And so we've got, one part, the world is in crisis story, and then one part murder mystery story. And then by the end, we'll have some answers. But throughout there, we're kind of through the main story, which is very focused on the mystery. And then we have our sort of raft of one shots spinning out of it, where we sort of explore what the world looks like when there's a big Doctor Strange shaped hole in it. I think they've only announced, what have they announced so far? Alex is doing the Avengers one, which is going to be really good. Doing the Spider-Man one. I think they announced Alyssa Wong is doing the White Fox one, sort of seeing what it looks like on the other side of the world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's going to be, I don't know. I'm pretty psyched about it. The first issue, is a 30-page, giant size one where we see what Strange's life is like, and we see what Strange's death is like, and that leads into what's going to happen for the next 4 issues.
Cool, dude. And what characters can we expect that are going to be kind of in the mix? Are we going to have any of the former? I mean, like Brother Voodoo, he was at one point like the Sorcerer Supreme, for a little bit. Are we going to see Scarlet Witch at all? Kind of what can we any teases you can give us that we don't already know about?
Well, I can't say we're not going to see Scarlet Witch.
Okay.
She's a little busy with something else that came out today.
Right. So I read that too. I just didn't know where it falls in line in terms.
Yeah, because that's because Trial of Magneto's going on, and then Death of Doctor Strange starts next month. So that was one character we're like, we can't really bridge the gap on that one. But we're gonna see characters from all over the mystic world. We've got Brother Voodoo in there because Brother Voodoo runs Strange Academy.
Right.
We've got Zalma Stanton, who also runs Strange Academy. Wong is obviously going to be there. My favorite number one Doctor Strange character, Bats the Ghost Dog, is going to be there. And then of course you can't have a Doctor Strange story, especially one involving his death, without the guy with possibly the best name in comics, Baron Karl Amadeus Mordo. And we're going to see characters from again, we're digging stuff out, characters haven't been worked with for a while, and because how it is when someone dies, everyone comes crawling out of the woodwork. So we're going to see
that's true.
We're going to see characters on the the shittier end of the spectrum, and Strange's friends. The people who work at the school he put his name on, the people who he was important to. So we're going to see quite a cast coming out of this one. It was a real juggling act, and there's always more characters I wanted to have in there and have more screen time. But ultimately, it is 5 issues. Yeah. So I could have run this out for 12 really, and given everyone their own little bit of spotlight. But that's where the one shots come in. I think it works really well in this respect, because we're seeing how this death affects these people and these different characters. And we're seeing people having to basically pick up the slack for Doctor Strange being dead. In Avengers, we're seeing a situation that Doctor Strange would normally deal with, but now the Avengers have to, and that's not something they're good at. In Spider-Man, you know, Spider-Man and Black Cat are basically dealing with Strange's last will and testament. They're going around dealing with all this, not world threatening, but certainly dangerous magical threats that Doctor Strange kept a lid on just as part of his duties. And now that he's gone, they have a laundry list that they basically go through and like sort things out to make sure nobody gets hurt, because Strange isn't there to keep these things on lock.
Oh yeah. This is in the one shot you're saying? The Spider-Man
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, it's the Spider-Man. I mean, it should be Spider-Man and Black Cat one shot, but I mean, you know how these things sell.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I get it.
So yeah, like I think it's one of those things too, where like I know a lot of times people roll their eyes at like one shots that are associated with events, but this is when I think it lends. I mean, obviously I'm going to say this too, but it lends itself so well to it because you're seeing something that has global effects, and not all those global effects can be dealt with in the main book. And so these one shots I think are really interesting explorations of the larger ripples of one person's death that's being dealt with in the main book. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like sometimes there's too many, and I'll be the first to admit that I complain about events where there's like 5-6 mini series adjacent to an event. But when it's in terms of like something like this, where to me it's like I would call maybe Death of Doctor Strange like a mini event, right? It's not. It's not completely over. There's a few one shots that's different, and then you pick and choose what you like. And you get them, and then if you really dug the story, normally there's a trade that has everything in it, and you get that.
Yeah.
If it's Spider-Man's on the title, I'm probably going to buy it because I love it. So it doesn't really matter what it does. That kind of eliminates whether or not I'll buy it. If it's I'm buying it,
it becomes a sure thing at that point.
Exactly. So you're wrapping up Black Cat, Moon Knight's going on, Death of Doctor Strange is happening. You're doing I think you're doing a Spider-Man one shot that's tying into the Beyond stuff. I saw that announcement yesterday, but you're kind of clearing the board eventually soon to where you're only gonna have Moon Knight. What else do you have in the works that you can kind of talk about or tease?
Excuse me. Well, I've got, not on the Marvel side, but over at Boom, I've got Magic the Gathering going. I've been writing the licensed comic for a little over a year now. So we had issue 5 come out a couple weeks ago, which has been it's been a fun experience. It's not something that I had a lot of experience in, working with licensed stuff outside of obviously working with Marvel IP, but it's been a really interesting and different experience because it's something that I had a lot of affection for Magic. I was very into it when I was a kid. It's something where it's a huge universe, but this is a sandbox that I'm in charge of now as far as the comic thing. Like this is like writing the Avengers, but it's also separate from the sort of game's canon or continuity. So we can take swings that would be impossible otherwise. So that's what I've been working on over at Boom. So yeah, other than that, just kind of like picking up stuff here and there. I've got a big one shot that's going to be coming out, I think December, January, that I'm working on finishing up, but it's a pretty big deal. Working on another ongoing that we're trying to put together. So I'm certainly have perhaps more work than I can handle at this point in time. So yeah, just stay posted or stay listening. I don't know. I'm losing track of my words here.
It's okay. I got you.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
There we go. Stay tuned, and you'll keep us all posted. That's
exactly.
For. So, well, like I said, I'm happy to see you on Moon Knight, man. I'm digging what you're doing.
Thank you.
Black Cat was great. Cannot wait for Death of Doctor Strange because he's kind of become one of my favorites. And due in large part to the movie, kind of reintroducing me to him after I hadn't really read.
Kind of like relit the fire, right?
It relit the fire. Brian K. Vaughan's story is what really made me a fan, back in the day. And then Jason Aaron just killed it on his run as well. So, very excited about that book. Kind of looking forward to what other stuff you got in the works. And I will definitely be hitting you up to chat about that stuff when it's time to chat about it.
Absolutely.
But before I let you go, if you could just, real quick, share with everybody listening, watching, where we can find you online, kind of where we can stay tuned, and I will drop those links down below for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my really only public facing social media is Twitter. So it's twitter.com/Jed MacKay, JEDMACKAY. Yeah, I mean, I have an Instagram. I don't really use it. I have a Facebook. That's just basically where I keep up on what my cousins are doing for the most part. So yeah,
All right, cool.
Twitter's where it's at.
All right, cool, man. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. It's been a blast talking comics with you.
It's a pleasure.
And I can't wait to do this with you again in the future.
All right. Well, like I said, hit me up. We'll talk Death of Doctor Strange in the next month or two.
All right, cool. Sounds good, dude.